Hello, Cornerstone family. Today I want us to think about two verses from the Old Testament book of Lamentations. These are verses that have become loved by many, many people throughout church history. It says, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." What a wonderful declaration of the faithfulness of God and the fact that his steadfast love is always there for us. It never ceases. And there are mercies that appear each day for us that are fresh. It's a fresh supply of God's mercy and grace. Last year, I spent some time meditating on those verses and ended up writing a brief devotional, which became part of my newest devotional, a small book for the hurting heart. So I just want to read that to you. In their time in the wilderness, God's people depended upon the food that God provided. One unique provision was a sweet, flaky bread called manna, which appeared on the ground every morning, but melted away when the sun got hot. It had a very short expiration date, which emphasized the Lord's prohibition against gathering more than one day's worth. This practice taught the people to trust God for their, quite literally, daily bread. Each morning, God provided a fresh supply. God's tender mercies are like that. Each day, he provides a fresh supply of grace, which assures us of his continued love and nurtures our faith. Yesterday's promises are sure and good and always helpful, especially in times of loss. But for your relationship with the Lord to thrive, your soul needs a conscious awareness of new mercies from God, which he provides every morning, every day. It was this way for Jeremiah as he grieved the loss of God's city. The prophet Jeremiah wrote the book of Lamentations after Jerusalem had been destroyed by God's enemies. We might imagine Jeremiah sitting on a hillside, quill in hand, but overcome with grief as he watches smoke rise from the rubble, remembering the city's former glory. Though the people of God's loss was a result of their own neglect of God's word, the manner in which the prophet brought his grief to the Lord provides a beautiful example for us to follow, regardless of how loss enters our lives. The prophet begins by humbly bringing his despair to God in prayer. Then he deliberately remembers the unchanging character of God. This in turn leads to spiritual refreshment and renewed worship. The two verses that I just read to you are the turning point of Jeremiah's lament. The prophet rooted his hope in the unchanging character of God. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. In the preceding verse, he reveals to us that this, that is the steadfast love of the Lord, is what he chooses to call to mind or bring to his memory, which becomes then the reason that he says, "I have hope." The steadfast love of the Lord is sometimes translated the Lord's loving kindnesses, and it comes from the plural form of the Hebrew word hesed, which is used 250 times in the Old Testament for God's covenant love. In fact, this word is so rich it's almost untranslatable in English. It includes nuances of loyal love, faithful mercy, and kindness. In the Old Testament, it's the closest equivalent to what we understand in the New Testament to be grace. His mercies are related to the Hebrew word for womb and communicate tender care and affection. Yahweh's grace and tender care never come to an end. They never fail, they never cease. They are new every morning. But they're not new in the sense that they never existed before, but they are new in the sense that they are refreshed each day. The same God who loved you yesterday loves you today. This means that when you woke up this morning, there was a fresh supply of God's love, mercy, and grace waiting for you. Just as God's people found manna on the ground every morning for 40 years in the wilderness, as a daily expression of God's loyal love, so you woke up to fresh mercies, which are sufficient for today. So take a minute to think about the faithfulness of God and say to God, God, thank you that your faithfulness is so great, and that today there is new mercy for me. Regardless of what I go through, what you walk me through today, I know that there is a fresh supply of your mercy and grace to carry me through.